are some plant life cycles. The cycle of a plant's life. Plants go through many stages in their lives, just like humans. The stages form a cycle or pattern that repeats again and again, just like babies grow up to become toddlers, then teenagers, then adults, then grown-ups, and so on. The stages a living thing goes through during its life is its life cycle. So these stages, all of these stages together, they form the life cycle of the living thing. This is an example of a plant's life cycle where it starts as a seed, then a young plant, then mature plant, then this mature plant flowers, and finally it produces fruit that itself later on will hold the seeds, and this cycle goes over and over again. Most plants come from seeds. So this is a very important point. Most plants come from seeds. A seed germinates. So what's the meaning of germinates? When the seed germinates, it breaks open and a small plant grows out of it. So this is germination. It's when the tiny seed breaks open and a tiny plant grows out of it. The plant grows into an adult, which forms flower in some types of plants. So not all plants make flowers, only some plants make flowers. A flower is the part of some plants that enables them to reproduce. Or reproduce also means make more baby plants. So reproduce means making more babies. So the flower is the part of the plant that makes or allows the plant to make new babies. This is a picture of germination. Let's see what's the meaning of germination. As you can see here, this is the seed. It breaks open as if you're unbuckling your coat. It's opening, and there's a tiny seedling growing out of it, or a tiny plant going out of it. So the seeds break open, and a little plant grows out of it. Some plants make flowers. This is what I said earlier. Not all plants make flowers. Some of them make flowers. Flowers are the parts that produce or make new babies. These are the flowers. These are the organs in the plant, or the part of the plant that makes new babies. Flowers can be colorful or dull. So when you see a yellow, fresh flower, you feel that it's colorful. Some other flowers are not so colorful or fresh. Some flowers are big, some are small. They have male parts and female parts that are involved in reproduction. Just like human beings, there is a female and there is a male. This is us in humans. Flowers, or the reproduction part of the plant, also have a female organ and a male organ, but it looks much different. So this is the flower, this is the female part over here, and this is the male part over here. Some plants make seeds without flowers. So we said earlier, not all plants make flowers. What about the plants that do not make flowers? How do they make new babies? Their seeds form in cones, the parts of some seed plants where reproduction occurs or happens. Unlike flowers, cones do not develop into fruit. So the cones do not make fruits. These are some coniferous trees, and these are some examples of cones. Cones and seeds. Let's take a deeper look. So these are examples of cones, and these are, when you peel these off, these brown parts of this cone, and you open them, you'll see these white seeds. Actually, we eat these seeds. These are pine. So we eat them, we add them to the food, and etc. Small wonders. There's a magic-like thing in the plants and how they make babies. These magic-like things are very tiny. That's why we said small wonders. Plants that make seeds also make pollen. Pollen is a powder-like material that's involved in plant reproduction. So pollen is the very tiny thing that's responsible for making new babies. Pollination happens when pollen is moved from the male plant part to the female plant part. So these are the tiny dust flying from the male part of the plant to the female part of the plant. This is when mating or reproduction will happen. If you can see this dusty material, this is pollen. Okay, of course, this is not only one pollen. These are thousands of pollens flying from this plant and perhaps going to another plant to produce more baby plants like this one over here. The environment helps in pollination. Water, wind, and animals can all carry pollen from the male parts to the female parts of the plant. So we'll ask ourselves, okay, this powder-like material, this material, how does it fly or how does it go from the male part of the plant to the female part of the plant? Well, nature has a very big role in that because water, wind, and animals help in pollination. A honeybee collects pollen to make honey. The bee goes from a plant to a plant and helps to pollinate other flowers. So this is a bee. You see this yellow particle? This yellow particle is the pollen. It's stuck on the bee's body. And then what would this bee do? This bee will go from this flower to another flower. Pollination by animals. This is an example of pollination by animals. And this is an example of pollination by wind. This is a dandelion flower, and these white things, they're flying from this dandelion to another one. So this is going to be the male part of this dandelion. They're going to fly from this dandelion to another plant to make a new dandelion later on. After a plant is pollinated, seeds form in the female parts of the flower. So now the pollens arrive to their destination from this plant to this plant. Now what will happen to these pollens? These pollens will go to the female part, and then themselves they will form into seeds, or they will make new seeds. The part of the flower that surrounds the seeds grows into a fruit. So the seed itself, around it, there's something that's going to surround it later on. The surrounding of the seed is going to be the fruit. If a flower is not pollinated, no seeds or fruit will be formed. So let's look at this sunflower. We all eat sunflower seeds, sometimes as a snack. This is the sunflower. You can see it's dead. And inside this sunflower, we can see the seeds. And this is also a plant. It's a kind of berry. You can see this red pulp. This is the fruit, and inside the fruit you will see the seeds. Seeds come in many shapes and sizes. You can see tiny seeds like the apple seed. You can see huge seeds like the mango seed or the avocado seed. After they form, they're often carried to new places to grow into a new plant. For example, let's look at this bird. What's this bird doing? This bird is eating the fruit. What will happen later on? All of us as living things, when we eat, we will have some waste. So, for example, a bird will eat fruit. Once the seeds in the fruit pass through the bird's body, they will be left in a new place. And in this new place, this seed will go maybe in the soil due to water or wind or some animals, and then this seed itself will germinate and grow up into a new plant. More and more spores. Now, we said that some plants make flowers, and inside these flowers we have male and female organs that reproduce. We said that some other plants have cones, and these cones hold the seeds. Now, we will talk about the third kind of plants that have spores. Let's learn more about spores. Some plants do not make flowers, cones, or seeds. Instead, they reproduce with spores. Spores are also reproductive organs. So we said that reproductive organs are the organs or the parts of the living thing that makes the new baby, that grow into new plants. Look at this plant. This is called a fern plant. You can see some brown spots all over this plant. What are these brown spots? These are called spores. These are the parts of the fern plant that are responsible for making new babies. Ferns are an example of a plant that forms spores. Each fern has leaves that are called fronds. So the leaves of the fern are called fronds. Spores will form on the underside of the leaves. You can see here that these spores are not up on the top of the leaves. No, they are underneath the leaf. This is a fern plant. I'm sure that you've seen it somewhere. Maybe some of you have these fern plants at home. Moss is another type of plant that reproduces using only spores. So until now, we said ferns and moss. These are the two kinds of plants that reproduce by their spores. The spores form in capsules. You know the capsules, the vitamin capsules. They look like a vitamin capsule. They are here. The spores are in these capsule-like shapes. Once the capsules dry out, the spores are released into the air to be carried to new places. So these capsules will open when they dry, and these spores inside these capsule-like parts will fly in the air. Later on, they will form a new moss plant. The summary of the lesson. So first of all, we said plants go through a life cycle just like any other living thing. Most plants come from seeds. As we said, most plants, not all plants, come from seeds. The first stage of a plant's life cycle is germination. This is step 1. Germination is when the seed opens its coat and a tiny seedling goes out. Some plants reproduce by the male and the female parts in the flower. Others make cones that carry the seeds. Some plants have spores for reproduction. Nature can help in making a new baby plant.